besties, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Cayenne and this is Cayenne is Booked. And today, yes, you heard it here first, we're ranking the Tattered and Torn series couples. This is my favorite series by Catherine Cowles, and I thought it'd be really fun because I had to purchase all of the indie covers because she's being picked up, I believe, traditionally for this series specifically, which is her Tattered and Torn series. And I need the OG covers, obviously, because like I said, this is my favorite series of Catherine Cowles. And then I was like, wait a second, how fun would it be if I did a couple ranking video, right? I did one of these on my channel a little while ago. I did the Fallen Men series by Gianna. That was pre-Caution to the Wind though, and I haven't gone back and updated it or anything, but I'll definitely link it in case you're interested in seeing who my favorites are in that series. And today, I guess we're doing episode number 2 of my ranking my favorite couples in a series. And we're gonna be doing the Tattered and Torn series. So this follows a family that has gone through like the absolute ringer. Shiloh, the youngest sister in the family, is kidnapped. I wanna say she was like, is she like 9 or 10, somewhere in that age range. So she's kidnapped at a young age. She's held on like this farm because it's a small town romance series. So she's held by the kidnapper, and it was actually the kidnapper's daughter who came to the sheriff's office and was like, hey, I know where the girl who went missing is. Like, she's on my family's property. And now here we are years and years later, all the kids are grown up and everybody's back in the small town together. And it's just kind of them trying to traverse life like years upon years after Shiloh came back, obviously. And, you know, everybody's super thankful that she came back and she was alive and she was able to recover from her situation and her kidnapping. But it's been a rocky road of recovery, which is something that we kind of go through with like each couple and like with the family from like start to finish in the series, because you kind of start to realize that, yeah, Shiloh was kidnapped and this really impacted her, but her brothers and sisters never had a normal childhood after that. Like, there were no sleepovers, there were no leaving their like mom and dad's sight. Like, you know, they were, I want to say, sequestered at the farm, but like they really were kept at the farm because, you know, their mom went into a really strong protective mode. So like now that they're adults, they're really starting to kind of see how that traumatic event shaped their family, and they're really all trying to, you know, speak openly and honestly about it with each other. But it's hard. It's hard to talk about these things. And I have a very clear favorite in this series, which doesn't always happen. Like, sometimes I'm like, it gets hard for me to pick between two couples, but there was like a very clear favorite in this one. So, I don't want to say like my least favorite, because my least favorite couple is a 4-star book, because this is a series for me. So we're starting from couple number 5 and working our way up to my favorite one. We have Shattered Sea, which follows Boden and Laken. And I listened to this entire series on audiobook. I definitely recommend this series if you're a huge audiobook listener, because Catherine like picks amazing narrators. And it was just a really good time, and it really helps like kind of make the story come alive, at least personally for me. So he is a super famous movie star, and he comes to the town because he wants to work with Ramsey, who he rehabilitates horses, essentially, like horses that have been in like abusive interactions like with owners, and he like brings them to the farm and like helps rehabilitate them. And Boden is playing a part in his next movie of a horse rehabilitator in an effort to, you know, showcase this side of you know, helping care for animals more. And him and Laken traverse like the absolutely traumatic past that she has, and it's a really, really wonderful connection. And I like the fact that, you know, there's an instant attraction between the two of them, but it's not in like a super cheesy way or anything like that. And I really like that they really take their time. And I don't want to give too much away, because this was like a very interesting plot for me, because it brings up so much of Laken's past. And it brings up a lot of how Boden feels about himself and like not wanting to fail another person, and how that kind of ties into what she's going through. So that's where I'm going to leave it. As a couple, I really liked them together. I thought that they were super cute, and you know, he really like put effort in places that like Laken's previous relationships like hadn't put effort in, and he really did take the time to understand her trauma and like everything she had been through and how that created the person in front of him. And I really appreciate the fact that he is so incredibly supportive of her as an artist. And that's something that she's always been lacking in her life. So like, I think it's just absolutely adorable that he was just so, I don't want to say invested in it, but just so supportive of her art and what that looked like. And, you know, really pushing her as an artist. So I really enjoyed that. Next up, so this one was really difficult for me to put as couple number 4, but I think I did a pretty good job of kind of coming up with why. So Hadley is Shiloh's sister, and Calder is like a family friend. And so this is Falling Embers, and this follows Hadley, who is the daredevil of the family essentially. And she's been trying to feel something, anything, ever since like her life was shattered alongside like the rest of her families and obviously her sisters with the kidnapping. Because like I said, her mom just went into like this really strong protective mode, and you know, she missed out on like all the things that like girls want to do when like they're in high school, like summer parties and prom and like all these things. And so when she became an adult, the way to kind of find that side of her, or like that side to be able to like do the things that she wants to do when she wants to do, was by being a daredevil, was by, you know, taking risks and doing all these things. But Calder, on the other side of things, he's like, you know, I have 2 girls, I can't take these risks. And as much as I love you, and he's trash for her, as much as he loves her and as much as he wants to be with her, he's like, I have to think about my girls. Like I have to, you know, I have to be there for them. And Hadley really struggles with her relationship with her mom, and you know, how judgmental her mom is of the way that she's been kind of working through the trauma that Shiloh's kidnapping put on everybody, right? Like her mom pushed everything aside and pretended like everything was okay and turned into like super protective. But Hadley's like, I don't want to be caged anymore. I want to be able to be the person that I am. And Calder sees that about her, but he struggles with being able to support that because, you know, you have the loves of his life, Hadley, but then you also have his girls, and you know what that looks like and how to navigate that was really difficult. I did think that like this was a very honest representation of the back and forth and like the miscommunication of how families feel like in a crisis or in like something traumatic happening, and how like you don't want to hurt people, so you just keep going along with like whatever those people want you to go along with until finally it becomes too much. And I love Calder. I love how much he loves Hadley. I love how supportive he is, and I love how honest he is. And it takes Hadley a little bit of time to get there, but I think it's really beautiful once they both get there. I did really enjoy this book. Next up, I have Hidden Waters. And so this is Beckett and Addie. So let me make sure that I explain this correctly. So Addie lives with Addie's family is within the same cult, essentially, that Shiloh's kidnapper, like he ran the cult basically, and Addie lived within that, but she's always wanted like so much more for herself. But you know, she's been beaten down, told that she's not good enough her entire life. Like women are supposed to be in the kitchen, they're supposed to be tending to the family, there's like everything that like everything archaic possible, right? So Addie wakes up one day and decides, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, okay? And she leaves, but her family doesn't want to let her go, right? And she meets up with Beckett because Beckett's been away at like Doctors Without Borders, essentially. So his response to everything happening with Shiloh was to run away, right? Run away within his profession, but still leave because like he couldn't deal with the fallout and like with everything that was happening at home. So he's like, you know what? I feel a lot of regret for that. I need to come home. Like I need to be supportive of my family. Like I need to be there for them. Like the way I wasn't so many years ago. So he comes back. Addie was living in his house because she needed somewhere to go. And sorry, Belle was doing something and I lost my train of thought. So Addie needed somewhere to live, and they're like, hey, who is it? Hayes, which is the oldest brother. We'll get to him in a second. Hayes is like, oh yeah, like my brother Beckett, like he usually crashes at my place because obviously he's moved in with his lady love. And Hayes is like, you can just take my place. It's gonna be no big deal, la la la. Like I usually share it with my brother Beckett, but you know, he's off like doing his thing. Haha, well Beckett's not off doing his thing anymore, right? And Beckett, having treated a lot of people in third world countries who come from like very abusive situations and who have been oppressed for such a very long time, recognizes what's going on in Addie and is like the best roommate possible for her, right? And is very considerate, like, you know, doesn't try to make like loud noises, like, you know, lets her know when he's coming into like rooms and things like that. And it's, honestly, I think about this book often and just like what a beautiful representation it was to watch Beckett kind of like bring her back to life, and how patient he was and how kind he was, and just like all of that love that like he gave to her. And it didn't matter how far she regressed into herself. It didn't matter, you know, all those things that like she was struggling with, or like who she, because you know her big thing was this like, listen, like I was a part of like, you know, this group and the leader was responsible for taking Shiloh. Like she had so much guilt for something that she didn't do, and Beckett was just like, that's not your fault, like I don't blame you for that, like that those were his actions and you didn't make this decision. So it was really just like a beautiful relationship of watching her heal and like how supportive he was of her healing. And I just loved it so much. This one, listen, Catherine can write a prologue, okay? And this prologue, it doesn't give anything away because I'm pretty sure this is even in the blurb. It does. So it says, be brave for 60 seconds, 20 breaths, right? So this is a story of Everly and Hayes, and Everly's dad is the one that kidnapped Shiloh. And brought her back to their farm where they were living at the time. And Everly's the one who got on horseback one night once her dad fell asleep and rode into the sheriff's office and was like, hey, like, I know where the little girl is, like that everybody's looking for, and like, I can take you to her, right? So the be brave just for 60 seconds for 20 breaths is that, those couple of words sucked me into the series. And this is Tattered Stars, so this is the first book in the series. So we meet up with Everly and Hayes as adults. So Everly left and now she's back. She has she has her old family farm. She wants to turn it into a rehabilitation center for animals, which I think is so beautiful. And she wants to turn it into a place of healing when there's been so much trauma and so many things that have happened since obviously Shiloh was found and her dad was sent to prison and she was sent to live with somebody else. And so she's back, all this kind of stuff, but Hayes harbors a lot of guilt and a lot of resentment. And he harbors a lot of guilt about the fact that he was with Shiloh and he turned around and turned back and she was gone. And so he feels like everything bad that has ever happened to Shiloh is his fault because, I mean, he was like 14, 15 when she was taken, but he's the older brother and he should have known better and he should have been there for her. And so when Everly moves back, Hayes lashes out at her because he's just like, nobody wants you here. I can't even believe you would think about coming back. Like, we all know what your dad did. And it's this very animosity filled relationship. And then I can't remember if it's his mom. So this takes place in Wolf Gap too, because we've made it almost all the way to my favorite couple and I haven't mentioned that. So this takes place in Wolf Gap. And he wants her to leave because he feels like she's going to bring back like really bad memories for his family. And he's like the older sibling, which I totally get. Like, you're really protective and sometimes you can't see past like the protection and your own grief, to the fact that like Everly had just as much grief. Like, she lived in a cult. Her mom was beaten to death by her father. Her dad kidnapped a girl that was the same age as her. And all she wants to do is like, she wants to come back and she wants to create a place of healing. She wants to create a place of happiness. And she desperately wants to be able to do that. And there's a lot of animosity, but Hayes slowly starts to realize that like that animosity and that guilt, like that's on him. Like, he feels that way and he shouldn't be holding on to that or like pushing it onto somebody else. So oh my gosh, this is such a great start to the series. I like love protective men. He's so protective and to really watch him like develop over the story and realize that it really wasn't his fault and it's not his responsibility to carry a burden for an adult decision, and he was a child. And watching them grow together and watching Everly, I don't want to say heal him, but help him understand that like her dad was going to do what he was going to do, and even if Hayes had realized it, he wasn't going to be able to stop him from his course. So I just thought it was a beautiful relationship. Like, I love how, you know, we went from hating each other to just being in love with each other. It's so incredibly like, it was everything. So I'm pretty sure you guys have guessed which book I'm going to say is my favorite book. And I really should, actually, it does come as a surprise because I really expected Hayes and Everly to be my favorite, just because like Hayes is the type of like main male character that I go for. Protective, grumpy, kind of closed off, like actually like really like a cinnamon roll inside, but like doesn't really show that to the world. But there was really something about Fractured Sky and Ramsey and Shiloh's story that really spoke to me. So this is Shiloh, and she was kidnapped when she was a child, and she harbors a lot of guilt because she knows that her kidnapping destroyed her family and destroyed her family's lives, and she feels guilty because if she had never been taken, her family would have felt whole, and like Hadley wouldn't feel the way as she does, and Hayes would have grown up to be somebody that maybe wasn't as volatile as he is. And, you know, Beckett wouldn't have run away, and her mom wouldn't be so protective. So she's feeling all these feelings, and she's still living with her parents. And she goes to Ramsey's ranch. It's kind of like a safe haven for her. And she just sits there. And one day they have this conversation, having never spoken to each other before. They have this conversation. She goes, I don't know what I want out of life, but I don't think I can figure out what I want staying at my parents' house. And Ramsey's like, well, I have a guest place. Like, why don't you just move in here? And Shiloh's like, okay. And Ramsey slowly starts to have these feelings for her. Like, she's beautiful, and he sees her for like who she is on the inside, because they've never really had any type of interaction, but like she's a beautiful soul, and the horses feel comfortable with her. His dog feels comfortable with her, and he is somebody who is also healing himself, feels comfortable around her as well. There's a lot of guilt there though, because he's like, I'm offering her a place to stay. Like, I shouldn't find her attractive. Like, she's trying to, like, you know, she's trying to heal from this trauma. But it slowly is this story of how Shiloh is choosing the things in her life, and people aren't telling her what she should do and telling her how she should feel. And I like thought it was so beautiful to watch Ramsey be there to like catch her while she's stumbling, kind of like, and I'm making this analogy because, you know, he rehabilitates abused horses, but he's watching her like get her footing for the first time and like start to feel comfortable in society and start to feel comfortable around him and like start to grow into like her comfort in like who she is as a person. And it's beautiful. Like, I think that their romance and what he was able to do for her is arguably one of the most beautiful romances that I've ever read. And I'm like kind of tearing up talking about it right now, but I'm 10 toes down on this. Like, I think that it is beautiful the way that he realized what she needed. And despite how he felt like inside, despite like the guilt that he carried, he tried to be exactly what she needed to be so that she could grow and that she could become who he knows that she wants to be, and give her the opportunity to make decisions on her own in an environment that is safe for her. And Shiloh really started to blossom and like be the person that she could be and like lean into the things that she wants to do without feeling guilty and without feeling like she was hurting her parents. And Fractured Sky is just, Ramsey and Shiloh hold such a special place in my heart. Like, honestly, this entire story does, but I just think about like her resilience, and I think about everything that she went through, and Ramsey knowing all of that, still being like, I will be here for you and I will do what I can to support you. Like, just tell me what you need. My babies. I love them so much. So Fractured Sky is my favorite book and my favorite couple of the series. And that's the Tattered and Torn series, ladies and gentlemen. I highly recommend grabbing the couple covers where you can, because I think that the couple covers are stunning. But I have seen the new covers for traditionally published, and I really do like them, and I think they lean like really like closely to like what each book represents in this series. And if you haven't jumped on the Catherine Cowles train or the Tattered and Torn train, we welcome you. We really do. I absolutely love the series, and it's definitely one of my top series ever, in case you were wondering. But yeah, so that is my ranking. Those are my couples. Those are my faves. Like I said, even if Shattered Sea is a 4-star read for me, I want to be clear that I love all the couples in this series. And it was actually like, you know, it was a hard decision, yet a very easy decision, because like I said, there's just something so incredibly beautiful about Ramsey and Shiloh's love. So that's all I got for you today. If you haven't read this series, I'm going to say it again, get on it. And as always, I will catch you in the next video. Bye.